Show here at the Life School Masterclass Show. I'm your host, Elona Parry, helping companies align and scale their purpose and profits. And today we're going to talk about a near and dear topic to all of us, which is marketing. We all understand how marketing is important in our businesses and in our grand visions and missions and the things that we do so we can reach the right people that we want to service with our services. Who else better than another beautiful connection? Than Kathryn Strachan, and she's going to talk about how to level up your marketing vision. She's going to give us the overlook or the big view, so to speak, of what we need to know as far as our marketing is concerned, so that we are plugged in the right systems, in the right channels to reach the people that again we want to serve. Kathryn, thanks so much for coming on, and I appreciate you sharing all your wisdom and expertise today with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
The pleasure is absolutely all mine. So let's kind of dive into some of the pain points you've seen with all the your experience that you have over the years as far as marketing is concerned. What is the main problem out there with your clients that you can also articulate in case someone tuning in can really identify, or if they're having the same issue right now, you kind of give a voice to the challenge that they're facing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's lots of problems in marketing. I normally become involved when they're ready to build a marketing strategy. And normally they try to do execution first. So they may, have worked with an agency, but they're not happy with that agency, or they may have hired a marketing manager, but they're not happy with that marketing manager. I basically come involved when you think that your marketing's not working. Often it's not working because you don't have the bigger strategy in place. So if you don't have that larger marketing strategy, it's very difficult to know what levers you should pull that are going to be effective, that aren't going to cost lots of time or resources trying to stumble around in the dark, or as I like to call it, throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important to be clear on all of that. And with every phase and stage of growth and evolution of a company, we all know that you have to pivot with your marketing as well, and you have to adapt that where you're heading as far as your growth is concerned. Based on your experience, Catherine, do you have a certain framework? I know you do fractional CMO work for companies. Do you utilize a certain framework to help them to support them with marketing that maybe you could share as far as some of the educational aspect behind the work that you do? Because that I'm sure will add a lot of value to the audience as well if they resonate with sort of how you've been able to find solutions for companies with their marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I always start by looking at the audience. Your audience is, the ultimate driver behind your marketing. It's who you want to build connections with. So, it doesn't actually matter if you think something's a good idea. It matters whether or not that's going to resonate with your audience. So, we normally start by looking at the audience. Who are they? Where do they already spend their time online? It's much easier to get in front of them on the channels and the platforms where they already spend their time than to get them to come to you. So I call this fishing where the fishes are, which my dad, as a fisherman, really enjoys. So it's all about getting in front of your audience on the right channels, on the right platforms, in the right way, so that you can like build a relationship with them. So this is going to determine quite a lot, from your approaches to your budget to your resources. So we start with the audience, and then we build out the core messaging from there. So we build out the USPs and the positioning statements and the mission and vision statements and all of these like core ingredients that you need for creating really effective marketing and really effective campaigns. We then look at your competitors. So, who are you going up against in the market? Like, what are they doing for marketing? Are there things that you can learn from or be inspired by? Are there things that they're maybe not doing so well that you can easily outpass them on? So, I mean, we look at the competitor analysis. How do they position themselves? What are they doing for marketing? And how can you kind of find a competitive edge or advantage? And then we combine the insights from the core messaging, the audience, the competitor analysis to create a marketing strategy. Now, I think it's really important to emphasize that once you have a marketing strategy set, it's not like a one and done. It's not like you do it and ta-da, it's done. You never need to look at it again. What you then need to do is, well, activate it. And then once you're activating it, look at the results and the insights that you're gaining, because you're increasingly getting smarter. You're increasingly learning more about your audience so that you can better refine what it is that you're doing, and then taking these insights and adapting the strategy accordingly. So a marketing strategy should be a living, breathing, evolving organism that constantly reflects what you know to be true about your audience, where you are in your business journey, and any market changes or business changes that you may be facing. So I mean, I'm constantly looking at the strategy for my clients, and can engage with them for years at a time, because it's a journey. It's a journey that's never really complete as well.
Yeah, so true. I love that you mentioned that a few times, that it's absolutely a plan in evolution, just like anything else in our businesses. And I love that you said clarity is really important, and knowing who your people are. I mean, you can't know your ideal customer well enough. I find that that's always like there's always something else to discover about them, because then you can really adapt everything that you need to adapt the marketing channels, the messaging, and the offer to that market as well. Catherine, based on your experience, what are some of the most effective marketing channels, or is there such thing, or is it back to adapting that to the market and the company?
It really depends. It really depends on the type of brand you are, and like who your audience is and where they spend their time. So I mean, there's not really like a silver bullet solution. And I mean, not knowing anything about the audience, there's not really like a blanket answer that you can even give. Because I mean, LinkedIn, for example, can be a really effective, very great like marketing platform for a B2B brand, but maybe wouldn't work for a B2C or high street retailer. So it really depends on the type of company you are, and where your audience is, and where they're spending their time. And that's why, like, there's not just one formula that you can follow that will give you the perfect marketing that is so granular. You really have to think bigger picture, and really take the time to understand like the business strategy, the vision, the audience, like, and all the strategies that marketing needs to work alongside, like the sales strategy. And it's from all this work and all this research, that you can identify the best levers to pull. So, I mean, unfortunately, there's not like, do this and you will succeed kind of answer. I wish there was, but then I probably wouldn't have a job.
Right? The one that it's everybody's looking for, the one magic thing to go after, and that's it. We don't have to do the rest of the pieces, but no, there isn't. And everything is absolutely adaptable to your business and your company and your market. Catherine, what about setting aside budgets for marketing? What do you recommend for companies to have aside as far as their marketing budgets are concerned? What have you seen?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you want to achieve. So, I mean, I will never agree to KPIs without, knowing that there's a budget there for it. So, I mean, you can have big, lofty ambitions, but you need to have the budget and the resources to help you achieve those big, lofty ambitions. So, it's looking at like the sales targets, normally looking at the sales targets and then working backwards from there. So, most companies are quite good at like setting sales targets of where they need to be in terms of sales in order to grow, and then working out, okay, if you need this from a sales target, what do you then need from a marketing target to be able to hit that? And what do you need alongside that for a budget to be able to hit that? So, I mean, it kind of all happens at once, and it's something that we work through and together. It obviously also needs to take into effect the business strategy. So, if you're trying to cover the globe and, dominate within 10 markets, that's a very different budget than if you're only looking at one market. It's a very different budget if you're trying to reach 10 very different ICPs and like ideal personas, compared to just trying to hit one. So I mean, the smaller the budget, you can design a marketing strategy around any budget, but the results that you can expect from it, and how much you want to achieve, or the amount of people you want to reach, or the markets you want to expand out of it, need to be tailored accordingly. So it's really about kind of trying to align lots of different moving pieces. I mean, there are some like rules of thumb in the market if you're, brand new and you don't know any of these things, and you're trying to like just get a steer on how much budget you should spend. And, they really can range, but normally like 5 to 10% is a good like blanket rule of thumb. But, like I said, it really does depend on what you're trying to achieve, what those big business goals and strategy goals are, and what you need from marketing in order for that to happen. And, trying to align and kind of juggle two or three plates all at the same time.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the fact that it's connected to sales, right? So that's kind of, the connecting dot between your marketing and sales. But yeah, of course, it's got to be accommodated based on your goals, just like anything else.
Yeah.
So that's
I mean,
kind of
marketing
what I
and
hear.
sales are like two halves of the same coin. So, I mean, marketing and sales need to work really closely together. And, I see a lot of companies that don't work closely, maybe have silos between sales and marketing. But, marketing really should kind of create a connection between the two. So you can only, really drive good quality leads if you understand that from a marketing point of view. Or, you also need the support from sales to nurture more long-term relationships. So it's really like important to know both sides. I think from my perspective, I used to own an agency, so I grew my agency from just me to 32 people with like a 2 million turnover and then sold it into a larger agency group. And I used to handle a lot of the new business from that. So I feel like one of my strengths in my role as a fractional CMO is the ability to understand new business. And I've done new business, I've sat in that sales seat. So being able to pull those insights into the marketing that I'm doing is really effective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you're also, we have tons of businesses here that are business to business, and LinkedIn is, you mentioned, is a great platform to be able to grow your brand and to offer value and to grow your thought leadership, and obviously also use it as a marketing channel. And I know you're very active on LinkedIn as well, and you build quite a presence and thought leadership. What has worked for you on LinkedIn that you could share with our audience as well?
Yeah, I mean, I now have over 16,000 followers on LinkedIn, and it's been, a long journey to get there. I probably started posting regularly and building my personal brand like 5 years ago. So, I mean, it's taken some time to get to where it is now. But I think, one of the most important lessons I've learned along the way is being yourself and, letting people in. So, people really like and engage with content that is very personal. So, I mean, anybody can talk about marketing or copywriting or, these like more services, these more like promotional things, but nobody can be you. So sharing, what you're doing, what you're up to, what you're thinking about, and, really not being scared to stick your flag in the ground and say, this is me. And as I've gotten more comfortable doing that, which like, wasn't easy to do at first. It definitely took, time and practice and getting comfortable on it and like getting comfortable in myself and feeling confident in myself to be able to claim my identity. But the more I was able to do that, the better engagement I got, and the more my followers grew. When it comes to engagement on LinkedIn, there's some really simple things like just responding to comments. If somebody takes the time to comment on your post, commenting and like responding to them is a really great way to grow your followers. So I mean, there's some like basic best practice stuff like that as well that is really helpful for growing and doing well on LinkedIn. I'm working with somebody at the moment to like help them set all the foundations, help them like, get their profile into the right place. And there's lots of things like this out there. But I would say like the number one piece of advice is not to be scared to be you.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned that for such a professional platform, right? How kind of how in the past LinkedIn has been and kind of their evolution also to go to authenticity and more of the personal side of the story or personal posts or things that we share personally and how that actually, connects your audience to you further. And I love that you said that, anybody can talk about these topics that we all cover in different areas based on our experiences, but nobody can be you. Nobody can share something the way you share it. Nobody can have the journey that you're on, right? Life, personal and professional. So that's definitely I've also seen are the best, type of content and also the best ways to connect with our audiences on there as well. Catherine, what about as far as you scaling your agency, as you mentioned, to those numbers that you did? What were some best practices that you utilized to help you grow your agency that maybe you could share with our audience as well?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of this in my book, which is coming out soon, called Scaling Success: Building Brands That Break Barriers. But I think some of the things that we definitely did right was investing heavily in our marketing. So I mean, I I started investing in my marketing very early on in the journey. So I got a small loan from the bank during COVID, and I used that in our marketing, and that really allowed us to skyrocket out of the pandemic. So most brands will hold off on investing in the marketing. They won't hire a marketing manager right away. They won't put money or budget into their marketing till they're a bit further on in the journey. And I think, the number one thing that I really did right was defining a very clear proposition of like who we are and what we did, and then investing heavily in it. So, all of that built brand equity and it allowed us to really flourish. We definitely wouldn't have gotten to the point where we got if we hadn't invested in our marketing and if we didn't have that really clear proposition around what we did and who we did it for. That really helps you to cut through the noise. It makes it very clear, like who you're for, and you're definitely not for everybody. So definitely take some time to think about what it is that you do, what you do well, and who that's for. And that massively helps you to cut through the noise. And then once you have that figured out, invest in your marketing, hire a marketing manager, invest in having a marketing strategy, do these things. And the earlier you can do it, the better. Building my network along the way. I've always had a big target of meeting 50 new people every month. And that's become like a superpower because I now have so many people around me that can help with any single challenge within the business when I was running it, and now, life after. And that holds you really well. Having a personal brand, which is obviously part of marketing, was a really big superpower as well. So there's definitely a lot of things that we did right along the way. I mean, some mistakes as well. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. There's definitely some mistakes and like some things that we shouldn't have done. But yeah, I mean, doing some of those foundational things was, yeah, super important for our growth.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Use your own superpower, which is marketing, right? To be able to grow and yeah, I mean
You gotta play to your strengths, right?
exactly. You are patient zero, I always say, right? And then you can help everybody else. I love that you mentioned that. But what about those mistakes? Because I really feel like we need to talk more about our challenges and our giving people context because it's so easy to share the wins and it's great. We all obviously learn from that. But what were some mistakes that now looking back, reflecting back, you wish you could have done differently with
Yeah, I mean,
scaling?
there's loads of things, but I mean, when I talked at the beginning about, maybe hiring an agency before you had a strategy in place or, before you had good brand awareness was definitely a mistake we made. So we hired a PR agency when we were only like a year into the journey. So we didn't have any brand awareness. We didn't have any like, strong brand equity, and then didn't get the coverage. And like, at the time we blamed the PR agency, but looking back, I see a lot of brands make this mistake. They're like, I want to increase brand awareness. Okay, I'm going to hire a PR agency, but nobody knows their name. They haven't done any like real marketing to be able to build that name. It's a lot easier to get PR coverage if somebody knows who you are. So I use the example all the time that like if Monzo or Revolut launched a 4-day work week, it would be all over the news, especially in the fintech world, like everybody be covering it. If X brand that nobody's ever heard of before does the same exact thing, it won't be in the media really. Like it'll be very difficult to get coverage over it, even though fundamentally it's the exact same policy that they've put in place. And this really comes from having brand awareness. So I think before you invest in PR, you have to invest in yourself, you have to invest in your own brand. But yeah, I mean, also having that bigger vision, that bigger strategy before you jump into activation. So, I mean, I know a lot of these mistakes because I've made them personally and learned from them, and then gone back and now advise people on how not to make those mistakes, which is really helpful and handy. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of mistakes that have been made along the way. I mean, any journey has ups and downs and pitfalls, and things that didn't quite go right or didn't go to plan. And it's just about finding the best way forward and adapting to that as much as possible.
Yeah. I love that you shared that. Thank you so much for doing that. I made the same mistake because that's the thing about business. When you skip steps, you don't get the same result and you don't always know which steps you're skipping, which is
It's the
why
same with
it's
life, though, as
important.
well.
Exactly, absolutely. So let's go into that. I usually love to get some background around, people's like life journeys and personal journeys on how they got to the work that they're doing today. So can you share some of the most meaningful moments in your journey that led you here? How did that all work out?
Yeah, through lots of twists and turns. I actually ended up in marketing because of dog walking. So this is a really great story.
Mhm.
But when I first moved to the UK, I wasn't allowed to work. So I am very entrepreneurial. So I was like, okay, I'll do some cash in hand, I'll do some dog walking. My very first dog walking client was a vice president of marketing from Yelp. So I dog sat her dog for a while, and after like a couple of years of dog sitting her dog, she asked me to come into the office, kind of as her assistant slash office manager slash marketing assistant. And that was the first time that I really saw marketing and the first time that I really saw copywriting. And I thought that copywriting would be a really cool job. So after I graduated from my master's at UCL, I pursued copywriting as a career, and that turned into my content marketing agency, which I've, just sold and exited, and it really, got me to where I am today. So if I hadn't started as a dog walker who was just trying to make ends meet and had, an incredible first client, I probably definitely wouldn't be where I am today. So lots of random twists and turns in my life, and I've got 10 million other stories like that.
But see, isn't that because I hear that all the time? I have so many beautiful guests on here and my personal journey too. And it's crazy how it's really those random moments. We think they're random, but they're kind of are the catalysts towards like the next thing that we're gonna do in life. That's why I always say nothing is ever wasted, right? Because you never know. Everything sort of builds on one another and every journey opens up the door to something else. And look at you. I mean, from that experience, you're actually doing this work now with companies and doing it really well as well. Let's kind of recap this conversation. Thank you so much for what you shared thus far. Me and you can go on and on about marketing for sure, because it's also a topic that I also love to support companies with in my COO fractional work. So I'm sure we can be a beautiful complementation of the work we both do. But for the sake of this interview and kind of the attention span of our audience, let's kind of give people a little insight around the book that you have out. What are some of the things that they can expect inside the book? And also, where is it that the audience can further connect with you today?
Awesome. Yeah. So my book, Scaling Success, Building Brands That Break Barriers, is due out really soon. It is about this journey. So it kind of follows the arc of how I built an agency from just myself with no connections, no people, to, a 32-person agency with 2 million in billings, and, ultimately was able to sell and exit it. But it follows that trajectory with lots of practical advice, peppered with personal stories of things that I did right, things that I did wrong, but it really walks you through everything you need to know and think about to build brand awareness. And to build your marketing strategy. And then once your marketing strategy is set up, to elevate it. So it's due out really soon, which I'm really super excited about. It's in the final stages of production. In the meantime, you can follow me on LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn will be in the show notes. But I'm really excited to connect with everybody who's listening. And thank you so much for listening to me ramble on.
Well, no, thank you for sharing from your very, very lived experience on my podcast on our platform here. That's kind of what I always love to hear, people sharing their truths from, their personal and professional journeys, right? And we always learn from one another. So thank you for helping the audience to connect the next dot in their journey if this was something that obviously resonated with them. I appreciate that. And definitely at least connect with Catherine, at least get the conversation started, just like she mentioned. Your network is your net worth, right? So you never know how you're able to support one another. And Catherine, do you have any final message that you'd like to leave our audience with today before we part?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my final piece of advice would be to set your strategy before you jump into execution. Make sure you know where you're going before you start going.
Yeah, absolutely. Very important. Well, thank you again, Catherine, for the amazing work you do in the world. And thank you for always listening, supporting the show. Don't forget, subscribe, review, and share the show with other amazing purpose driven entrepreneurs. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. Are you experiencing these two main gaps in your company and your business? Inconsistent cash flow and clients, and also scalability issues. Maybe you've reached your maximum capacity with your current business model and the way that you're operating your business now, and you are really experiencing burnout and no time freedom in your business, but you're not sure what to do to be able to scale your company to the next level so that your company also becomes an independent asset outside of you so that it can become an asset if maybe later you would like to sell your company or build a legacy company that really does more good in the world. For my dear podcast listeners, I'm offering a free 30-minute discovery call where I will intentively listen to what is it that you've built in your company thus far, and then offer my insight around some of the gaps that I can hear from the main gaps that we talked about at the beginning of this conversation that you might be experiencing. And I would love to offer some insight around my experience on what might some of those gaps be and ways to further support you in the future of the scaling of your purpose and profit so that absolutely you can do more good in the world and your company can be independent of its founder and owner and become an asset that also creates amazing momentum out there in the world. For a limited time, I would love to offer my 30-minute time on my calendar for a free discovery call. You can just grab a time on the QSR code right here on the left-hand side of the screen and grab a time so we can further connect. Again, thank you so much for being loyal listeners to the podcast and also for always supporting the show. I'll see you with another episode and another amazing conversation.